All right, let's get right into it. We're about to dive into one of history's most chilling and, honestly, truly unsolved mysteries. It's the story that begins as a pretty standard expedition in Russia's Ural Mountains, but it ends with 9 seasoned hikers found dead under circumstances that are just, well, they're beyond bizarre. And yeah, that is the question, isn't it? It's the one that has absolutely haunted investigators, researchers, everyone, for more than 60 years now. What could have possibly happened on that remote, frozen slope to cause such a terrifying end? So let's start with the most crucial fact. 9 people dead. Every single member of the expedition gone. And look, these weren't just some casual campers. No, these were young, strong hikers who are experts, and I mean experts in winter survival. And this is where it starts to get really weird. The first major clue the rescuers found, their tent. It was cut open, but from the inside. It wasn't ripped apart by an animal or some attacker from the outside. The hikers themselves sliced their way out. Just think about that. It points to this overwhelming, desperate need to escape. Something. And get this, they fled into the freezing night. We're talking deadly cold here, without shoes or proper coats. Can you even imagine the level of terror that would make 9 experienced winter survivalists abandon their only shelter, their warmth, their boots, and just run? Something made them choose a certain death by freezing over staying in that tent for even one more second. All right, so let's talk a little more about this doomed expedition. Who exactly were these people? Because to really get how strange this whole thing is, you have to understand just how capable this group was. We're not talking about a crew that would make simple, deadly mistakes. The timeline at first seems totally normal. The group, led by a 23-year-old named Igor Dyatlov, they set off in late January of 1959. Their goal was a remote mountain peak. By February 1st, they had set up what would be their final camp on a mountain slope. And then, just silence, nothing. When they didn't come back on schedule, a search party was sent out, probably expecting to find them weathered in or maybe dealing with a minor accident, but they were completely unprepared for the horror they were about to walk into. And again, this is the part that just makes absolutely no sense. All 9 of them. Every single member of this expedition was an expert in exactly this kind of environment. Their level of experience makes their panicked, what seems like totally irrational actions, just baffling. So the question we have to keep asking is, what could possibly spook a group this prepared? Okay, let's get into the bizarre evidence itself. What the rescuers discovered really did shock the world. This is where the story goes from a tragedy to just pure high strangeness. The scene they stumbled upon was not a simple accident, not even close. So the state of the bodies, it was a massive contradiction. Some of the hikers had these horrific internal injuries. I'm talking crushed ribs, fractured skulls, injuries consistent with the force of a car crash. And here's the part that's just impossible to wrap your head around. Their skin showed no external signs of trauma. No bruises, no cuts, nothing that would suggest a fight or a fall. And then there's the final grim detail. One of the women in the group was found, and her tongue was missing. The first 2 bodies the search party found were more than a kilometer away from the tent, down by a tree line. And they were barefoot, dressed only in their underwear, huddled by the embers of a tiny, desperate fire. It's just this tragic image. It paints a picture of a frantic and ultimately failed attempt to survive against absolutely impossible odds. So naturally, people started searching for an answer. With evidence this bizarre and contradictory, it's no surprise that the theories are they're all over the map. They range from plausible scientific explanations to stuff that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. Okay, so one of the most intriguing scientific theories to come out of this is something called infrasound. Now, the idea here is that certain wind conditions around the mountain could have created this low-frequency sound. It's a sound that's completely inaudible to the human ear, but it can have a powerful physical effect on the brain. It can literally induce feelings of intense, unexplainable dread and panic. Maybe enough panic to make you slash away out of a tent and run for your life. So let's break down the main contenders here. On the scientific side, you've got theories like a slab avalanche, basically a huge plate of snow suddenly breaking loose and forcing a panicked escape. Or there's that infrasound idea we just talked about. But then the speculative side gets a whole lot wilder. Is it possible the hikers stumbled upon a secret Soviet weapons test and were eliminated? Or what about the fact that other people in the area reported seeing strange orange lights in the sky around that time? That, of course, led to all sorts of theories about a UFO encounter. So this really is a case that was never truly closed. For decades, the official story was that it was closed. The files were sealed away. But the questions, they never, ever went away. They were kept alive by all these independent researchers who just knew that none of the simple theories could explain all the bizarre facts. And then, just in 2020, Russian authorities actually reopened the case. And after a new investigation, they came out and announced their official conclusion. The most likely cause was a small avalanche that forced the hikers to flee their tent. And on the surface, that sounds, well, it sounds like a neat, tidy explanation, right? Something that finally puts this whole mystery to rest. But does it really? I mean, does a small avalanche explain those massive internal injuries with no external marks? Does it explain why they ran a full kilometer away instead of just, digging their tent out? And of course, what about the missing tongue? The official explanation seems to leave some of the most disturbing questions completely unanswered. So even with an official conclusion, the Dyatlov Pass incident really does remain an open wound in the history of unsolved mysteries. Was it just a freak weather event, a military cover-up, or was it something else entirely, something we can't even comprehend? More than 60 years later, it really feels like the truth of what happened that night is still out there, buried beneath the snow.